за разом у нас происходит одно и то же. Потом на финалочке, уже окружение города, надо сделать какой-то пируэт, опять же, как с Авдеевкой. Все, туда направляется 3-я УШБР. И все такие, сейчас тройка наведет порядок. Вы сколько не тренируетесь, сколько не будьте подготовленных, если вас кидают сходу в бой, без рекогносцировки местности, без подготовленных позиций, то есть без абсолютной коммуникации вменяемой и тому подобное, тут никто уже ничего не сделает, да, если ты не Господь Бог и не решишь там каким-то чудодейственным образом это все изменить, это не выйдет ни у кого. Ни у какого подготовленного подразделения. И получается одна и та же проблема: запустить все до обхода по флангам, до провала фронта, потом срывать какие-то, я не говорю сейчас о спецназе, вообще любые подразделения, перекидывать с одного участка фронта на другой в авральном порядке, даже если это бригада, стабилизирует фронт, она опять же понесет неоправданные потери.
The battle for Pokrovsk, ongoing since 2024, appears to be nearing its end. Russian assault units first entered the city back in the summer, but now large forces have advanced from several directions. Open source videos show Russian troops taking positions across Pokrovsk. In the north, they have reached a district of high-rise buildings overlooking the only road linking the Ukrainian Armed Forces garrison in nearby Myrnohrad with the east of Ukrainian-held territory. Another Russian group is pushing toward the same road, the Munigrad-Rivne, from the north. A corridor roughly 5 kilometers or 3 miles wide still separates it from the Russian forward units already inside Pokrovsk. Despite the threat of encirclement and growing difficulties in resupplying the Myrnohrad garrison, the Ukrainian command has so far, at least officially, made no plans to withdraw its forces, vowing instead to stabilize the situation with counterattacks or even to clear Pokrovsk of the Russian assault troops who have broken through. An equally critical situation is unfolding for Ukrainian forces in Pipansk, in the northeast of the Kharkiv region. Russian troops have captured most of the city's western half, advancing toward the crossings over the Oskil River that Ukraine had used to supply its bridgehead on the eastern bank. Still, Ukraine claims there is no encirclement, despite Russian Army General Staff Chief Valery Gerasimov's claim of one. Ukrainian troops continue to hold the crossings over the Oskil in the neighboring town of Pipansk and Vuzlovy. Russian forces are now trying to reach the town from the east, with about 5 kilometers or 3 miles remaining between them and the river crossings. The Russian army has deployed large forces into Pokrovsk. Until now, only small assault groups have been operating in the city, mostly in the southern part, for several months. Ukrainian sources say the main attack came along the railway line from Kotliny, where Ukraine's 32nd Mechanized Brigade have been defending. It was likely the brigade's command that President Volodymyr Zelensky had in mind when he said commanders should not be afraid to report enemy breakthroughs. In any case, judging by open source videos, units of the Russian Armed Forces 2nd Guards Combined Arms Army have taken control of the central railway station, the northern outskirts, including the exits towards Dnipro and Rodinsky, and districts of high-rise buildings in the eastern and northern parts of Pokrovsk. It's unclear whether significant Ukrainian forces are still within the city. Open source footage shows only small groups of Ukrainian infantrymen engaging Russian assault troops or surrendering. Meanwhile, large Russian forces, brigades of the 51st Army, have launched attacks on Myrnohrad, Pokrovsk's satellite city, from the east and southeast. Another grouping from the same army has taken part of Rodinsky and the nearby village of Rivne Liman, advancing toward Pokrovsk's northern outskirts to link up with the 2nd Army. If they are successful, Ukrainian units from the 25th Airborne Brigade and the 30th Marine Brigade would be cut off from the country's main forces. Ukraine's main intelligence directorate carried out a helicopter landing of a small special forces team on Pokrovsk's northwestern outskirts in an industrial zone near the road to the Dnipro. The objectives of this operation and whether they were achieved or not remain unknown, although Russian sources claim all units were eliminated shortly after they landed. Another video shows a small group of Ukrainian soldiers from the 425th Assault Regiment conducting a raid into central Pokrovsk, where they raised a flag over the city administration building. There are no reports of larger Ukrainian attacks aimed at breaking through to units still inside Pokrovsk or at reversing the situation around Myrnohrad. Zelensky has said that between 260 and 300 Russian assault troops remain in Pokrovsk, and that the city will soon be cleared of them. However, this figure appears to significantly understate the scale of Russia's presence. Ukraine's last chance to prolong its defense of the Pokrovsk area may be a large counterattack against Russia's 51st Army near Rivne. Some outlets, like Meduza, believe that Ukraine has forces capable of such an operation, but that they have been engaged in eliminating the so-called doubtful breakthrough north of Rivne. Units of Russia's 51st Army have recently withdrawn from that sector to the Novy Shapove line, abandoning the villages of Zoloty Kolodias and Kucherov Yar. However, Russian expert believes that the UAF lacks the strength for any such counterattack. In quotations, at this stage of the conflict, Ukraine does not have sufficient resources to launch a large-scale counteroffensive, according to Russian military analyst Alexei Zivov. Zivov suggested that even if the Ukrainian armed forces attempt an attack, the outcome would likely be limited to minor, localized gains along certain sections of the front. He noted that Kiev's forces might try to show activity near Pokrovsk or in one of the southern directions, but any potential success would be tactical rather than strategic. The expert emphasized that, in his view, Ukraine currently remains entrenched in a defensive posture, lacking the strength or equipment needed to achieve meaningful breakthroughs. Earlier, media reports indicated that Volodymyr Zelensky, whose political influence inside Ukraine is said to be waning, might consider launching a new counteroffensive in an attempt to retain power, even at the risk of heavy military losses. Nevertheless, whichever version is more accurate, the Ukrainian command now faces a choice over how to use its forces around Doubtful, whether to attempt a counterattack without any guarantee of success, to hold positions near Pokrovsk, or to establish a new, more stable defensive line north and west of the Pokrovsk-Munigrad area. In the latter case, Ukrainian troops will need to begin withdrawing from Munigrad as soon as possible.
But then, on the morning of the 8th, Russian media military affairs reported that Russian troops have completed an operation to fully encircle Pokrovsk, according to the telegram channel MASH. The report states that roughly 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers are now trapped inside the pocket. The Russian military also reportedly secured the village of Rivne, the last remaining grey zone in the area. The main Ukrainian units stationed in Pokrovsk were forced to retreat toward Myrnohrad, where they are now attempting to hold defensive lines along the eastern approaches. According to the information source, only scattered groups of Ukrainian troops remain in Pokrovsk after failing to withdraw in time. Counterattacks personally directed by the head of Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, Kirill Budanov, were unsuccessful. Russian soldiers emphasized that the only way for the surrounded Ukrainian fighters to survive is to surrender. Earlier, around 700 Ukrainian servicemen near Pokrovsk reportedly approached Russian forces under white flags. Russian media Lenta also reported this on the 8th of November. The Russian army thwarted the attempts of the armed forces of Ukraine to break out of the ring of encirclement in the Donetsk People's Republic. This was stated to journalists in the Russian Ministry of Defense during a daily briefing on the situation in the Special Military Operation Zone. According to the department, units of the Center Group of troops continue to destroy the surrounded formations of the armed forces of Ukraine in the eastern part of the central district of Pokrovsk. and on the territory of the Western Industrial Zone, as well as clearing the settlements of Natuvka and the ROG 39 buildings were taken under control during the day. In addition, 14 attacks were repelled from the area of the village of Lushini in order to unblock the surrounded Ukrainian fighters. In Myrnohrad, units of the 5th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 51st Army of the Russian Armed Forces continued the offensive. There are 19 buildings in the Vostok micro-district. According to the Ministry of Defense, Kiev lost more than 240 people, 2 armored combat vehicles, a tank, and 3 pickup trucks in the areas of Dmitrov and Poprosk during the day.
Russian forces continue to build up their presence in central Kupiansk. Open-source videos show Russian assault troops operating even on the southern outskirts of the city's western half, near the crossings over the Oskil River that once served as a key supply route for the Ukrainian armed forces, sustaining their bridgehead on the eastern bank. Unlike in Pokrovsk, however, Ukrainian troops in Kupiansk still have room for active operations. The entire Russian grouping in the city depends on supply routes running from the crossings north of Kupiansk, as well as through an underground gas pipeline linking the eastern bank of the Oskil to the village of Radivka on the western bank. The Russian bridgehead on the western side of the river remains relatively narrow, meaning Ukrainian forces could try, if not to cut it off entirely, then at least to slow the Russian advance into the city by striking around Radivka and Kindrashivka. Such attacks have, in fact, been underway for several weeks, though their success cannot yet be assessed based on the available footage. The Russian command is trying to resolve the bridgehead's supply problems by linking it directly to Russian territory. To that end, Russian troops are advancing across the border between the Belgorod and Kharkiv regions, in the area between Milove and Volohivka. They likely attempt to seize Vorichansky and Kolodiazny in the near future, which would give them access to the road leading to the Kupiansk bridgehead. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces on the eastern bank of the Oskil are clearly facing supply shortages, and the defenses appear to be weakening. Russian assault troops have been sighted in the central part of Kupiansk's eastern half, and in the village of Kurilivka, about 5 kilometers or 3 miles from Kupiansk, Kozlovyi, where the last Ukrainian-controlled crossings over the Oskil in the area are located. But no doubt one of the reasons that the Russian expert believes Ukraine lacks the strength for meaningful counterattack is due to the ever-increased desertion number. As South Front Press puts it, when a government loses respect, it reaches for the criminal code. In Ukraine's Verkhovna Rada, or Ukraine's parliament, lawmakers are once again debating how to tighten punishment for desertion, freezing bank accounts, seizing property, extending prison terms. The author of the proposal, servant of the people MP Ruslan Orbenko, claims that about 300,000 criminal cases have been opened for desertion and unauthorized absence from units. He insists that half of them have already returned to duty. The reality looks very different. As of September 1st, there were 265,843 open cases, and over 8 months of 2025, only 3,136 soldiers came back, less than 3%. Everyone else has vanished from the frontline map. Behind the dry language of new bills lies a statistic that makes even officials uneasy. Over the past few years, Ukraine has launched hundreds of thousands of proceedings for desertion and unauthorized absence, and that is no exaggeration. According to the Military Chronicle, there were roughly 160,000 such cases in 2025, another 67,000 in 2024. Add full-scale desertion cases, and the total number is comparable to the pre-war size of the Ukrainian army. These aren't just numbers, they are a mirror of collapse, proof that the state can no longer hold on to its own soldiers. Yet the Rada never asks the real question, why are they running? It only looks for new ways to punish them.